Our next story is about a person who I had never heard of before, but I now have a lot of respect for. His name is Raif Badawi. He was a blogger, and well, still is a blog. Well, I guess he's not a blogger anymore, but a human rights activist he still is, who co-founded a website in Saudi Arabia called Free Saudi Liberals in 2008. He formed it to create debate on religious and political issues in Saudi Arabia, and it didn't go so well for him. He was harassed, he was brought in, questioned, and he was charged with insulting Islam. He was actually in charge with apostasy, but he was able to beat that charge, and that was death penalty for him. So, fortunately, he was able to beat that one. But he was sentenced to 10 years and 1,000 lashes for the insulting Islam. And the best thing about this story is he served his 10 years and he's gotten out of jail. And he seems like just an amazing person. He did not have to receive the whole 1,000 lashes, which was another good thing. He did receive 50 of them in front of a mosque too. Is that I does anybody find it weird that they would give lashes in front of a holy building? And but there was a medical outcry about the lashings. A medical doctor found that he couldn't endure any more of it, and they suspended the rest of the lashings. So he didn't have to do that, but he did serve 10 years in prison. He was honored with the Sakharov Prize for Freedom of Thought in 2015. And his wife is now living in Canada, but according to his sentence, he can't leave Saudi Arabia for 10 years. So I'm hoping that maybe he gets smuggled out of the country somehow and was able to join his wife and family in Canada. So yeah, that's like I said, he's just seems such like an incredible person to me that I couldn't believe that I didn't know who he was before.
Yeah, and this is one of those stories I think for a lot of people it kind of takes us back for a second because I mean what did he do? He started a blog.
Hmm.
He said some words. He said, "Oh my gosh, what about not having the religion control everything in government in our daily lives? What about we take a break, you know? Even the good Lord rested on the seventh day, right?" But that was enough to put him in jail for 10 years. I think I heard that if he ends up serving the rest of his sentence, his oldest child will be the same age that he was when he was put in prison. And that is so hard to think about, losing that much of your life for essentially what we're doing right now, less than what we're doing right now. And it really is, it's hopeful that he was able to finally be released. I hate that I hate that it took so long. Um, but Teo, you had some pretty good thoughts on this. What were your thoughts?
Ooh, I couldn't call them good. I'm the emo anime again because I'm going to bring you down, guys. I don't see anything positive about this. He spent 10 years in jail. And have you heard about Mubarak Bala? He was an atheist who in 2014 was forcibly drugged and put into a sanatory. And a doctor told him, I'm quoting a doctor, my dear, you need a God. Even in Japan, they have a God. No one should live without God. Those that do are all psychologically ill, denying the biblical account of Adam and Eve. It's delusion, denial of history. And that guy is right now in jail, only due to the sin of being an atheist. And some months ago, here in the nonprofits, we talk about Priyanta Diwayandana, who was tortured and murdered for blasphemy, where blasphemy was doing his job of cleaning a freaking wall. So now we have this guy, Raif Badawi, whose worst, terrible, awful sin was being a blogger and a human rights activist. He was actually fighting for human rights, and he co-founded the website Free Saudi Liberals. So he was telling people, think for yourself, and that was enough to put him a decade in jail for the terrible, terrible crime of encouraging people to think. Let me. Do I have the quoting of the how is it called? Yeah, the crime was violating Islamic values and propagating liberal thought. Propagating liberal thought. Thanks to that, he was in prison for 10 years. He got 1,000 lashes, a fine of 1 million rials. That is like $266,000, sorry. And he's banned from any type of media work or foreign travel for 10 years after his release. So now he cannot leave the country. He cannot go back to being a blogger. And all because of the terrible crime. I'm very upset. I don't know if you can notice, for the terrible crime of telling people, hey, you're able to think for yourselves. You can do it. You're not alone. Apparently they are, because if you do that, you go to jail for a whole decade.
Yeah.
And that upsets me a lot.
And I think you're right to be upset. And Genevieve, I'll throw it over to you because there were some spicy things you had said that I think are really, really important and powerful. So what were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm relieved that he has been released, of course, but Teo's absolutely right that there's nothing good about this story. I think that it's important to remember that there are a lot of countries where just being an atheist or just dissenting against the government is punishable by death or 10 years in prison. Um, you know, I've always had a lot of thoughts about Saudi Arabia because they have committed many atrocities that we have tended to go a little light on because they do have money and oil. But most recently, last week, I was reading an article about how Saudi Arabia was criticizing the West for, joining up in arms and fighting for the freedom of Ukraine and remaining silent on conflicts in the Middle East. Never mind the fact that we have been directly involved in many of those conflicts. But it was particularly funny coming from Saudi Arabia because I think that they don't really understand why exactly people are so upset about what is going on in Ukraine. And it absolutely has to do with a delusional authoritarian dictator invading a sovereign nation and a sovereign people and trying to bend them to his will. Um, and he's doing the same to the soldiers that he's sending out to the front lines who aren't even aware of necessarily what they're walking into. Um, and so at the end of the day, Saudi Arabia, a country that can take a young blogger who is just saying, hey, everybody, maybe we can share some different opinions and different ideas. We don't have to stick with the status quo. If they can send somebody like that to prison with 1,000 lashings, they have no room to talk because I don't think that they want all of us to put them under the microscope the same way that everybody in the news is doing to Vladimir Putin at this moment.
And I will say it undeniably was in large part due to the uproar that was made online by a lot of people around the world that he was able to be spared the 950 lashes that were on the table for him. He was given 50 and they commuted the rest. But, even 50 is too much for me. Even one for something like this, for anything. I don't know what could possibly warrant that type of behavior from any government worldwide. But Kelley, I want to ask you this. I've heard some people say, kind of something in the vein of, well, this isn't your home, Rarity. You don't live here. You don't know what it's like to be in Saudi Arabia. You don't understand our government. Do you think that's a reasonable argument? Do you think it's fair that maybe I just grew up in a place and a background that just I wouldn't understand this? Or do you think it's something else?
I think it's pretty easy to understand and recognize a repressive government or a repressive regime or society when you see one, and this is definitely one. I think we can all understand that anywhere we are in the world. So I don't think we have to be from Saudi Arabia to see that this is wrong. that this is just wrong. People should be able to speak their mind. We should be able to have a freedom of religion. This guy almost was killed for joining a Facebook group, for crying out loud. That is wrong. Any way you look at it, you don't need to live in Saudi Arabia to understand that.
Teo, what do you think?
Oh, for me, the laws in those countries are disgusting. They are disgusting laws, and it's awful that they exist. And whenever I talk about how worried I am about the USA and how religious people, not even religious people, religious extremists are taking the power over there, I am worried about you guys because I feel that those extremists, a specific group, they want the USA to be a Sharia Christian country, Sharia law Christian country. They want to have kind of the same behavior that they have over there, where we atheists cannot speak freely. So only their religion matters, and whatever their religion says matters. And for real, that scares me and that worries me a lot because, yeah, I mean, they are going to come for the atheists, and I've seen many comments saying, "Oh yeah, you know what?" Once I saw people saying, "Oh yeah, atheists don't believe in God. We should kill them so they meet the God and they start believing." And when you see that type of toxic behavior online, and those are the same people who vote and choose candidates, and they start supporting candidates who support very extreme religious laws, that is when I get very, very concerned about things going up over there. And I am concerned because as soon as something interesting happens over there, South America tries to copy that. And I don't like that either.
There's
So,
an echo across the Atlantic, you're saying.
yep. And
Yeah.
it's terrible.
Well, Genevieve, I'm going to put all this on you. What the heck do we do about it? how do we push back against this type of stuff? Not only in our country, in the United States, but in South America, in the Middle East, in Africa, in Europe. What do we do?
Gosh, well, I didn't know that I'd be tasked with
You got to fix the whole world. Yeah.
saving the world, but it's going to be a little bit of a long-winded answer, but you said something to Kelley earlier that I do want to touch on, which is sort of the United States, or the West in general, has a really bad track record of going into different nations with different cultures and saying, we know what's best, we're going to come in and fix everything. And that's often completely ignorant, both culturally and economically, etc. But we can all recognize that, Raif Badawi is part of that culture. You can't just go with what the majority says and then just say, oh, we can't touch that because we want to be, culturally respectful. We have to push back on this idea that your religious beliefs, whatever they are, make you a good person, or a better person than anybody else around you. We need to have more mutual respect for, I would say, believers and non-believers. I'm sure that I get plenty of pushback in the atheist community from time to time because I have friends who are Christian, or I have friends who are, practicing Muslims. And even though I think that a secular worldview is, I wouldn't say, the right one, but at least, approaching everything around you with a bit of skepticism and logic and doing away the fairy tales is always a good thing. But at the end of the day, I don't want to alienate my friends, and I don't want to create a culture of hostility where, you know, this is the way that people behave, and, they become tyrannical. I think that, what do we do about Christian nationalism in the United States? Gosh, I will be, put my email in the chat because I would love to hear everybody's thoughts of what we do for this clusterfuck. And sorry, pardon my French. But as far as what we do with Saudi Arabia, let's stop buying their oil. Let's get some renewable energy, and let's actually put some sanctions on them until they, begin to respect human rights.
Yeah, definitely some good thoughts. Kelley, any thoughts on what what those of us here, just a totally separate continent, just completely halfway across the world, any way we can lend support or kind of push back against some of this stuff?
I it's hard to say. Again, I don't know how to change the world, and one of the things that I've noticed in my many years of being on the earth is that things, while they tend to change for the better, it doesn't happen very quick, and in some ways that's a good thing. But I don't think we're going to solve this problem. The point is, we're not going to solve this problem overnight, but we do
Mm.
need to be conscious of what's happening in other countries. And, a trade embargo is a really good idea. That's what we did to end apartheid in South Africa. So, I mean, that's
Mm.
not a bad idea.
Yeah.
It's worked before to make human rights better, so I'm with Genevieve. Let's do a trade embargo.
Teo, are you signing off on this too? I don't know if any of us here actually have the power to enact it. But what do you think? Maybe a little adjustment in some international relations for some countries out there that seemingly violate human rights left and right, whether it's on the Asian continent, whether it's on the African continent, or anywhere else.
Oh, sadly, I think that money controls everything. So as long as
Mm.
they have money and there are companies and there are rich people who get money from them, you are not going to be able to do that. I think that the solution is education,
Mm.
helping other people, our type of activism, and trying to prove and to show the world that, hey, there are people suffering because of this. There are things that you don't see that they are bad things that we have to change. And sadly, I feel that the best way to change the world is going very, very slowly, changing one generation at a time, helping one person at a time, and trying to educate others.
Yeah.
Promoting positive atheism, so we are not seeing as monsters who have to be killed so they can see God. Teaching people about the harms of religion so they don't see, oh, God can do whatever he wants because he created us. And talking about these type of issues so people don't say, oh, atheists are they want to feel threatened but they are the bullies. No, guys, atheists are being murdered and put in jail for daring to speak freely about thinking, not even blasphemy, just for daring to say, people, you have the right to think on your own. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's terrible. I think I guess atheists in those countries sadly should keep quiet for now, but we should do all the talking for them while we can.
Mm.
And we should do a lot, because if things don't change, we may not be able to do that in future, and we may be one day in the same circumstances that poor Raif Badawi is right now.
Yeah. And I'll say one last thing, and I'll toss it to you, Genevieve, to take us out. But yeah, I think it's really worth remembering, and I think we all kind of touched on it a little bit. But he's out of prison, and that's great. But he is not allowed to leave the country. His prison just got bigger, folks, and every single day, his wife and his children and all of the people that are working to help his situation, to make sure that he is safe, all of those people are walking on eggshells, because at any point in time he could be picked up, and then he will just be back in prison. And that's not a good situation. That's not a good situation. Yes, he is out of jail. Yes. But is it much better? Is he really free if he can't speak up, if he can't say to somebody, "Hey, I don't believe in Allah," or "Hey, I'm not a Christian." Is that really much better? I don't know. It is definitely a hard one to know, but I think, yeah, education and continuing to speak on things, that really does help a lot. Genevieve, you want to wrap us up?
Well, I think you just did a beautiful job. But I will definitely echo what Teo said. I know that there's a lot of people out there who are not facing thousands of lashings or 10 years in prisons for speaking up about your beliefs, but I would encourage anybody who, maybe is underage or living with, religious parents, or in a somewhat hostile community. While yes, it is a very brave and so courageous of Raif Badawi to speak up, and yes, he is absolutely a hero. Anybody out there who similarly feels unsafe because of your lack of religious beliefs, I would encourage you to do what you can to protect yourself first and foremost, and don't become a martyr. Just do what you can to get out, and I hope that Raif Badawi can also get out and be reunited with his wife in Canada.
Yeah, absolutely.